Hey everyone, today we're going to take a look at the Marvel Legends Retro X-Men Dark Phoenix 6-inch action figure. As usual, please like, share, comment, subscribe. I appreciate all engagement on my channel. Now this figure is the second most anticipated one for me in this wave because I didn't actually have the original release of the 2-pack Dark Phoenix. And this figure also comes on the new Shriek body mold. So here's a quick look at the packaging. It's on the retro style X-Men card with the Phoenix Saga branding just below that X-Men logo. On the top left, you also see the Phoenix logo. And over here we have artwork of Dark Phoenix projecting her powers. In the plastic tray, of course, we see the action figure. She comes with 2 interchangeable splayed hands, as well as a Phoenix flame effect part. Now we move over to the back of the card. Schematic artwork of Phoenix over here. Description of her character, rest of the figures in the wave, and some product information. So now let's quickly get her unboxed. To unbox Phoenix, I simply slice that plastic bubble off the back, so I can keep the retro card in my collection as well. Phoenix comes with 2 interchangeable splayed hands, and these are cast in the yellow plastic. These are completely the same sculpt as splayed hands from other female Marvel Legends characters. They are articulated inwards as well as outwards. And of course these hands swap onto the figure just fine for good display and options. Her Phoenix flame effect is pretty cool, cast in a translucent orange plastic that lets the light through quite well, and there's also decent sculpting to show how the flames roll into those Phoenix wings. There's a hit of gold paint for the eyes of the Phoenix, so that's a cool touch. And there's also some glossy, darker orange paint on the wings that has a nice fade from the lighter orange plastic to the darker orange paint. And the Phoenix also has a nice tail with a little curl on it. So you just slide that effect onto her arm, making sure that it should fit snugly as you push it further up. So it looks quite cool perched onto her arm, and she's projecting her Phoenix Force powers. However, this plastic effect is a little heavy as well at the top. So of course if it doesn't sit nicely and firmly onto that arm, it might just swing downwards. So you just gotta watch out for how you fit that further up her arm for a better fit. So she comes with just this one power effect. It might be wishful thinking, but I do wish she would have come with a larger Phoenix flame effect, just like the old Toy Biz, that you can fit behind the figure for a much better and more powerful shelf presence. The Dark Phoenix figure is on the Shriek body mold, so that means that she's got a curvier and more muscular body compared to the previous release of the regular Phoenix. She's also shorter because now she comes with flats compared to heels on the original Phoenix figure. I definitely much prefer the flats because the figure is now more stable and easier to pose, while the heels on Marvel Legends really do make the figure more unstable and harder to pose in action poses. Having Dark Phoenix on this height also makes sense because now she's comparable to the regular Jean Grey in her X-Men outfit. I do also like how the Shriek body mold has the shoulders in a more natural position compared to the shoulders on the X-Men Jean Grey, looking a little too high and kind of scrunched up and tense. So while this Phoenix does look a little shorter, I don't think the height is that much of a big issue. She also comes in brighter colors compared to the metallic red and gold on the 2-pack Dark Phoenix. Again, I don't mind this color palette too much, cause looking different from the original Dark Phoenix release is probably a good thing as well. I do believe her head sculpt is a complete reuse from the original Dark Phoenix release in the 2-pack. That's not a big issue because that sculpt was pretty great in the first place, but it's also a little disappointing that we didn't get the alternate head sculpt for a powered down version of Dark Phoenix. So this head sculpt has an evil smiling expression on her face, digital dot matrix printing technique for sharp applications, red for her eyebrows, whites in her eyes, and I do like that dramatic black shading around her eyes as well, really bringing forth the sinister demeanor stemming from the Phoenix Force. There's also red for her lips and whites for her teeth. There's also a subtle bit of blush on her cheeks, just to add more color to her face. I took a closer look at her eyes, and I do also like how the high resolution printing technique means that she's got some red that's painted between the whites and the blacks, so that gives her eyes a glowing effect. So once again, that is really a nice touch and elevates this reused head sculpt over the original one that came in the 2-pack. I do like how all the paint applications are still sharp, even for the parts of her face that's concealed by the red hair sculpt. The red hair sculpt is also pretty dramatic. A lot of those locks flying in the wind. I like the dark red wash. That really brings out all the textures in the hair sculpt. And this makes the hair sculpt look really organic, even on a plastic action figure. So overall, I don't really have complaints about that head sculpt. I just wish that she had a powered down swappable head. Moving from her head sculpt, we see there's also flesh tone paint on her neck that matches the flesh tone plastic on her face. Most of the rest of her body is cast in the red plastic, and she's got a yellow Phoenix Force logo on the middle of her torso. I do have a slight complaint about this. While the yellow looks really clean, and there's a clear separation between the yellow paint and the red plastic, it's clear that the yellow paint was first applied to the bare red plastic in a sort of triangular shape, and then red paint was applied over the outlines of the yellow paint application. So while the logo looks really neat, you can see 2 layers of paint applied along the sides of the entire logo. So that is quite distracting, particularly because her logo covers her entire upper torso and is the main thing that catches your eye about her outfit. So while looking really clean, I just don't really like how the red paint shows and distracts from the overall aesthetics of the action figure. Another downside of this yellow Phoenix logo is that when you arch her back all the way, that logo does tend to break up. So that yellow paint should definitely have gone all the way up into that mid-torso joint. Her arms are cast in the yellow plastic, and once again we see that same effect from that red paint on the top part of her bicep. This paint is a little more glossy and isn't that great a match to the red plastic on the rest of the figure. So while the applications are clean, the glossy finish and the different tone does also distract from the figure. Now we move on to the back of the figure. It is just a plain red plastic with no extra paint detail. Yellow plastic used for the sash that goes around her waist. Nice sculpting to show the folds in the fabric. And there's also a Phoenix logo over here. And perhaps surprisingly, there's also a hit of gold paint. And I do appreciate this as a nice touch because it really makes that Phoenix logo stand out against the rest of the yellow plastic on that sash. We move on to her legs. Her hips are cast in the same red plastic, while the rest of her legs from the thigh swivel onwards is that yellow plastic. And I will say though that the red paint over here for the top of her thighs does actually match the plastic much better in terms of the tone as well as the less shiny finish. So it's surprising how well it's done over here, but the same cannot be said of the paint on the biceps. So overall, this is a rather simple and clean execution of the sculpt and paint on the figure. From far, it looks clean and the colors do pop, but when you do get close to it, you will see some of the subtle details of the paint finish that isn't quite desirable. She's got female Marvel Legends standard articulation that comes with the shriek body, so a ball hinge at her neck. You can get her head to turn sideways, but perhaps not all the way around, hindered by that hair sculpt. She does get some good bit of sideways wiggle, able to look down quite a good bit from rotating that hinge, and also some good upward range. Once again, it's also limited by that hair sculpt. Swivel hinge at her shoulders, so it goes 360 and thus come out quite a good bit. Upper bicep swivel for 360. Double jointed pinless elbows for good range. Swivel hinge at the wrist for 360 spin, articulating in and out. Mid-torso ball joint, so you can spin her sideways. Also getting a decent bit of sideways tilting. Pretty acceptable forward bend as well as backward bend. Ball joints at the hips for a decent spread. No problems forward and backward as well. Upper thigh swivel for 360 spin. Double jointed pinless knees once again as well. And that's good range. Hinge at the ankles for pretty good range upwards and downwards. And finally ankle pivot that goes outwards as well as inwards. So being on quite a standard Marvel Legends body, it means that she articulates well and you can get her looking quite natural in most poses. And of course, naturally, you have to get Phoenix into her flight pose. She looks good with the wind-swept hair, as well as the Phoenix flame effect. The shriek body mold is easy to pose, but I do feel that she could definitely have used a couple more flame accessories. So now we're taking a look at a couple of optional swappable parts from other figures. And you can see that the yellow tone of the plastic for the hands on Siren with the curled fingers can be swapped over. We can also use the flame effect parts from figures like the Human Torch. So we can use these other interchangeable hands and flame effect parts from other figures for more play and display options for Dark Phoenix. And finally, the head sculpts are swappable between the original Phoenix figure and the new Dark Phoenix one. So it doesn't really make sense to have that evil head sculpt on the original Phoenix body. But you do have a good option for a regular powered down Jean Grey in her Dark Phoenix outfit. For size, Dark Phoenix stands at almost 6¼ inches to the top of her hair, and that's about 15½ centimeters. For size comparisons, here's Dark Phoenix with a couple of X-Men. And here she is with Apocalypse, Mr. Sinister, Gladiator, and Strife. For comparisons with other lines, here she is with G.I. Joe Classified Series and some Star Wars Black Series. Fans finally get Dark Phoenix on the new improved body, especially when the previous version is super hard to find. I do wish that she'd come with a neutral head, more Phoenix power effects, and the paint for the logo on her chest could have been done so much better. There are ways to use hands and effect parts from other figures to improve playability. This figure feels functional, there's really nothing surprisingly good or bad about it, and it definitely fills the Dark Phoenix hole in many fans' collections. Please like and share this video, let me know what you think in the comments below, subscribe to my channel, or even hit the super thanks button. Thanks for watching, take care, and stay safe.